Welcome back to Monster Tamer, a 2D Pokemon-like RPG created for Age 3. Previously, we started working on updating our battle classes to support multiple monsters in our game. If you missed the previous videos, there'll be links in the video description to the source code to this point, as well as the complete source code for this video. There'll also be a link to the previous videos so you to catch up, so let's get started. So now we added in most of the logic we need for updating our monster's details. When we want to go ahead and switch to a new monster, we need to actually add this logic to our battle scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on updating our state for switching monsters to actually have the logic that we need. And so when we want to switch our monsters in our battle, what we want to go ahead and do is first we want to check to make sure we have available monsters. And if we do have available monsters, then we want to go ahead and launch our monster party scene so we can go ahead and select a monster. When we launch our monster party scene, we'll need to have logic in our battle scene to handle when our scene is resumed. And if a monster is selected, then we want to go ahead and have that monster come out during battle. And if a monster is not selected, we want to go ahead and put the player back right in the state they were in before, where we're waiting for player input. And so to go ahead and start adding these changes, what we'll do is first we're going to go ahead and add a check to make sure we actually have monsters available so we can actually do our switch. So to do this, we'll do a new variable, do const. We'll do has other active monsters. We're going to set that equal to our scene data. We're going to grab our player's monsters, and we just want to see if any of them besides our active monster has health greater than 0, and if they do, that means they're eligible to be switched to. And so what we'll do is we'll do sum, and we'll have monster, and then in our function, all we want to do is make sure it's not our active monster, so we're going to do return, and we're going to return if our monster.id does not equal this, our scene data, our player monsters. We'll do this, our active player monster party index, and we'll grab our ID from there, and our monster.current HP is greater than 0. And so all we're doing here is we're just grabbing the ID from the monster we're looking at inside our party array, and we're making sure the ID does not match the unique ID for our currently active monster. And then we just make sure they have HP greater than 0, and if they do, then we at least have one active monster, and we can do our logic for switching. So now what we can do is, if we don't have any active monsters, we can go ahead and do this logic that we had before. So we'll just add an if statement. We'll do if has other active monsters. And if we don't, we will go ahead and update our state to go back to player input. And we will go ahead and just return so we don't run any other logic. So if we do have active monsters, now we want to go ahead and launch our monster party scene. And so let's do this. We'll reference our scene, we'll do launch, and we want to go ahead and launch our scene keys, and we'll do our monster party scene. And then we'll need to pass in some data, so we'll do scene data to pass. And then we want to go ahead and pause our current scene, so we'll do the scene, we'll do pause, and we'll do our scene keys, and we'll go ahead and do our battle scene. All right, then let's go ahead and define a new variable, so do const, we'll do our scene data to pass, will be equal to an object, and then what I'm going to do for this object, we'll add in our type. And so for our type, this is going to be our monster party scene data. And so on here, we'll do our previous scene name, and we'll do our scene keys, and we'll do battle scene. But in addition to our scene, we'll want to go ahead and pass in what our current monster's index is in our party, so then that way we can't select that monster again. And so we'll go ahead and add a new property. We'll do active battle monster party index. We'll set that equal to this, our active player monster party index. So now what we'll want to do is let's go ahead and add that real quick to our type. And so let's do a new property, and this will be a number. And we'll have active battle monster party index, and we're going to go ahead and make this optional because we only need to pass this if we're coming to our monster party scene from our battle scene when we're switching monsters. All right, because we're launching our monster party scene, what we'll want to do is we'll want to add in our logic before we handle our scene resume. And so what we'll do is let's jump over to our base scene class real quick. Let's go ahead and copy our logic for our handle scene resume from here, and we're going to go ahead and override this with logic in our battle scene. And so what we'll do is for our data, instead of having any, we're going to go ahead and have our battle scene was resumed data, otherwise it'd be undefined. And then what we'll do is let's go ahead and just remove all this logic here. And we'll do super, we'll do handle scene resume, and we'll go ahead and pass in our scene systems, and then we'll go ahead and pass in our data. So then what we want to do when our scene is resumed, we need to make sure if a monster was selected. If one was not selected, Then we want to go ahead and update our state to go back to player input, so our player then can choose another option for the battle. And so for that check, we're just going to do if data does not exist, or our data that was monster selected is false, or we don't have an index come back, so we'll have data selected monster index is undefined. Then we just want to go ahead and update our state machines. We'll do this. We'll do our battle state machine, call set state, and we want to do our battle states, and we want to do player input. And we'll go ahead and return. If we do get an index back, now what we want to do is start our animation for where our monster disappears off the screen, and we have our new monster appear on the screen. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and lock our input. So we'll do lock input, we're going to set equal to true. That way the player has to wait until this is all done. And then what we want to do is we're going to add a new property to actually know that we're switching our active monster out. So we're going to do this, we'll do a new private property, we'll do switching active monster, and we're going to set that equal to true. So real quick, let's add that to the top of our class. So we're going to add in our new private property, and this is going to be a Boolean. And we'll go ahead and add in our value in our init method. And so we'll come back to that property in a second, but mainly it's going to be used in our other states to know if we are switching our monster. So once we've done that, now we want to go ahead and play our animation for having our monster disappear off our screen. So we'll do this, we'll do active player monster, and we'll do our death animation. So then in our callback, what we'll want to do is start updating our game objects to have the new relevant details for the monster that was selected. And so we'll need to keep track of what our new active index is. And so we'll do this. We're going to do our active player monster party index will be equal to data and then our selected monster index. So then we're going to reference our active player monster. And we're going to call our methods that we added in our last video. So we'll go ahead and call switch monster. And now we need to provide our monster details. So let's go ahead and grab that from our scene data. We'll go ahead and grab our player monsters. And now we want to go ahead and use that new index, so selected monster index. We'll need to update our monster's attacks in our attack menu, so let's reference our battle menu. And we will do update monster attack submenu. And only after we've done all these updates, now we want to go ahead and unlock our input, so then that way our player continue their battle. And so we'll do this, we'll do controls, we'll do lock input, we'll set that equal to false. And now we need to go ahead and update our state so we can bring out our monster. And so we'll do our battle state machine, and we'll do set state, and we want to go ahead and do our battle states, and we'll do bring out monster. All right, so we just added a bunch of code, but at a high level, what we're doing is after we select a monster from our party scene, we want to go ahead and handle that in our battle scene, and we just want to make sure a monster was selected. If one's not selected, then we want to allow our player to select another option. If a monster was selected, we go ahead and start updating all of our data to go ahead and replace our game objects with the new monster that we're bringing out into battle. So then we go ahead and utilize all of our methods we added in our last video. All right, and then finally, we call the set state method on our state machine to go ahead and switch our state to bring out monster. And so instead of making a new state, we're going to go ahead and reuse our existing bring out monster state because that state has all of our logic we need for actually having our monster appear in our battle scene and have it animate onto our screen. However, to reuse it, we need to make a few minor changes to it so then that we can support when we are starting our battle versus when we're switching a monster. And mainly what we want to do is if we're in the middle of battle and we go ahead and switch our monster while the enemy monster is still alive, what would happen is we'd bring out our new monster, and then the enemy monster could attack our new monster because it's still their turn. And we'll want to go ahead and reflect that in our state. So what we'll do is let's jump into our bring out monster state. And right after where we say go monster name, before we go ahead and switch to player input, we're just going to add a check to see if we're switching our monster. And if we are, we go ahead and switch to enemy input so they can attack us. And so we'll do this, we'll do switching active monster, and we will do this, our battle state machine, and we'll do set state, and we'll do battle states, and we'll do enemy input. And then we'll go ahead and return, so then that way we don't switch to player input. All right, so one more quick change we need to do is we need to update our state tied to where we actually have our battle. And so similar like what we do when we do have our flee attempt, we need to have similar logic for when our player is switching active monsters. So that way we only have our enemy attack us and we don't actually have our player attack. So what we'll do is we'll copy our logic here for flee. We'll go ahead and paste it. And if the player switched active monster, and we'll go ahead and update and use our new property. So we'll do this and we'll do switching active monster. If that's true, then we'll go ahead and have our enemy attack. We'll switch to our post attack check. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and reset that property. So we'll do switching active monster. We'll go ahead and reset that back to false. All right, so before we can test our new changes, we need to make some changes to our monster party scene. And what we need to do is when we go ahead and switch back to our previous scene, we need to go ahead and pass in our new properties that we're expecting for when we choose a monster. So in our battle scene, when we do our handle scene resume, we're expecting at least 2 new properties, was monster selected, and the selected monster index if one was chosen. So we need to pass these if that happens in our monster party scene. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is let's jump to our monster party scene. We'll go to our go back to previous scene method. And we're going to go ahead and add a new argument, and we'll do was monster selected. And so this is going to be a Boolean, so let's go ahead and add that in. And so what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and update our data object we passed back to our scene that we're resuming. So we'll keep our item used, and then we'll go ahead and add in was monster selected. And then we need to go ahead and add in our other property for selected monster index. And so what we'll do for this property is we're just going to check to see if a monster was selected. And if that's true, then we're just going to go ahead and pass in our selected party monster index from the monster we clicked on. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and pass in undefined if this was false. So now what we need to do is update our code for any time we call this method. So we'll go ahead and update that in our code. So we're just going to go ahead and pass in false. And then let's do our other 2 instances, and we'll go ahead and pass in false. All right, so the last thing we need to do is we need to handle our player input for when we're choosing a monster. So what we're going to go ahead and do is similar like what we did for when we handle our item used, we need to handle when our previous scene was our battle scene, so that we know we're switching our monsters. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add an if statement and do if our scene data dot previous scene name is equal to our scene keys, our battle scene. Then we know we went from battle scene to monster party, so we're trying to switch our monsters. And so what we'll do is we're going to call a new method to have all this logic. And so we'll do handle monster selected or switch, and we'll go ahead and return. So let's go ahead and add that new method to the bottom of our class. So we'll have our private method. And all we're going to do for the time being right now is we're just going to call our go back to previous scene so we can go ahead and test our logic. So we'll do go back to previous scene. And so an item wasn't used, so we'll do false, but we did choose a monster, so we'll go ahead and pass true. All right, so with all of our code changes, we should now be able to test. So let's go ahead and come into our scene. So we have our monster. If we go ahead and fight, everything should still work accordingly. If we go to switch, now we jump over to our monster party scene, and now we can see our 3 monsters in our party. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and go down to cancel. What should happen is now we should still see our menu, and our player can still select an option. So if we do fight, we can continue our battle. Okay, if we go back to switch, instead of selecting cancel, let's go ahead and do our back button. All right, we're back to our menu. And now finally, let's go ahead and choose a monster. So let's go ahead and bring out Ignivolt. All right, so now our battle scene starts. We see Ignivolt comes out, and then our enemy battle monster starts attacking us right away, and we lose our 5 HP. All right, so we do switch one more time. Let's go ahead and try bringing out Carnodusk. All right, we bring out our monster, they attack us, and if we attack, we can see now our new attack name is showing up. And also our monster's details are updating as well. So we have Carnodusk, the level, EXP, and HP. All right, real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and knock out the enemy monster just so we can make sure our EXP is working. So now we've knocked out the enemy monster. We can see Carnodusk just gained our 19 EXP. Iguana gained 37 EXP, and Ignivolt gained 19 XP. All right, so we have a bug here we need to fix, but we'll come back to that. But what should happen now is we come back to our world scene. We can see our monsters. All right, if we take a look, we can see our 3 monsters, and we can see their stats are reflective of what happened during the battle. So we can see our HP is reflective, and then our monsters have their various EXP, except for Iguana Knight. We need to take a look at what happened there in that bug. All right, so then what we're going to do next is we're going to add some additional logic while we're selecting our monster in our monster party scene. So what we want to do is when we switch our monster, we want to make sure we can't choose one that was knocked out, and we can't choose a monster that was already active. So for example, I don't want to bring out Iguana Knight again because he's already out. So to do that check, all we're going to do is come down to our handle monster selected for switch, and we're just going to make sure that our monster is not fainted. So we're just going to do if this, our monsters that we passed in, and we'll use our index. We'll do our selected party monster index. We'll grab our current HP is equal to 0. Then we want to go ahead and show a message as, hey, you can't use them to fight. So we'll do this. We'll do our info text game object. We're going to do set text. I'm just going to say selected monster is not able to fight. And we'll do waiting for input. So that way our player has to clear the message. And we'll set that equal to true. And then we'll go ahead and return. So then what we'll do is let's go ahead and copy this block of code, and now we're going to make sure that the selected monster's index doesn't match the monster that was already active. And so for our if statement, we're just going to do this, our scene data, we're going to do our active battle monster party index is equal to our selected monster party index. Then we just display a different message. We'll say selected monster is already battling. And then we'll wait for input and we'll do true. So if we want to test both of these flows, let's go ahead and open up our monsters JSON file, and we're going to go ahead and update ignivolt. We're going to set current HP down to 0. And then let's jump over to our preload scene. We'll go ahead and go right into our title scene, so we can go ahead and reset our data. So we'll do new game. Let's go ahead and save. All right, so now if we come into our battle, let's go and try switching to ignivolt. We'll see, hey, we can't choose them because they're not able to fight. And we have our spacebar. Now we can choose a different monster. If I try choosing Iguana Knight, he's already battling, so we can't choose him either. So let's do Carno Dusk. And likewise, if we do switch, now if we select Carno Dusk, we can't. If we do Ignivolt, Iguana Knight, he pops out. If we do Iguana Knight, he shows up in battle. Alright, so take a quick look at our bug with our experience points. Let's go into our monsters JSON file. We're going to go ahead and reset Ignivolt's HP back to be 25, but then we're going to go ahead and bump up his current attack to be 25 so we can easily knock out the monster. Let's go into our preload scene. Let's go ahead and go to our title scene. We'll do a new game, so we're going to reset our stats. And let's go ahead and save, so we have our monster data. Let's reset back to battle scene. And now what we'll do is let's go into switch. We'll bring out Ignivolt. We should get attacked. Go ahead and fight back. We knock out the enemy monster. Alright, so Ignivolt gained 19, but we gained a lot more than 19 on our EXP bar. Iguana gained 37, 19. Okay, so for our bug, let's jump into our battle scene. If we come into our code for gaining experience. Yes, so when we do our active monster check, we're checking for active player attack index. That is not what we want. We want our active player monster party index. Alright, so we're going to test our changes. Let's go ahead and bring out Ignivolt. We'll go ahead and knock out the enemy monster. Alright, so now we see Ignivolt gains 37 experience, and we're about a third of the way full. Perfect. Iguana Knight gets 19, Carnos gets 19. Alright, so real quick, let's go into our monsters. Alright, so real quick, we'll take a look at our monsters details. Alright, so we'll see Iguana Knight needs 72, Carnos needs 72, Ignivolt needs 54. Much better. Alright, with that brings this video to an end. In our next video, we'll continue working on our logic for switching monsters, and we're going to handle when our player gets knocked out, and we'll switch to another monster. So as a reminder, there's a link in the description of the video to the complete source code for this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and hit the bell icon to be notified when the next video in the series is released. For more Great Phaser 3 content, please see the links on your screen now.